Welcome to Mastermind with me, John Humphrys. In the spotlight tonight, William Donnelly, a retired English teacher whose specialist subject is the Pax Britannica trilogy. Ash Cattell, a senior marketing manager who'll be answering questions on the musical Les Miserables. Melissa Bookbinder, a postgraduate student in French whose subject is the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. And Steve McMillan, a former pensions manager whose specialist subject is UK #1 singles of the 1960s. Four people who spent weeks mugging up on their specialist subjects but haven't a clue what questions they'll be asked in the general knowledge round. It's the unpredictability of it that's so scary. That, of course, plus the black chair, the spotlight and the relentless ticking of the clock. 2 minutes of questions on their specialist subjects, 2.5 on general knowledge. So let us get on with it and ask our first contender to join us, please. And your name is?
William Donnelly.
Your occupation?
Retired English teacher.
And your chosen subject?
The Pax Britannica trilogy.
Trilogy of history books which chronicle the rise and fall of the British Empire. Here we go in 2 minutes, starting now. The first volume, chronologically, in Morris's trilogy about the history of the empire is called Heaven's Command and was published in 1973. What is the book's subtitle?
Pass.
Which was Britain's oldest colony? Sir Humphrey Gilbert took possession of it in 1583 on behalf of Queen Elizabeth I.
Newfoundland.
Yes. Which former mayor of Birmingham was the Secretary of State for the colonies in Lord Salisbury's government? He promoted various schemes to build up the British Empire.
Joseph Chamberlain.
Yes. Which country was involved with Britain in the so-called Pig War of 1859, part of a dispute over the ownership of San Juan Island?
United States.
Yes, the surgeon who was reported at the time to be the only survivor of the British Army's retreat from Kabul in January 1842 later also survived the siege of Lucknow during the Indian Mutiny. What was his name?
Dryden.
Yes, Edward John Eyre was a renowned explorer of the hinterland of southern Australia, later became the controversial governor of an island in the Caribbean. Which island?
Jamaica.
Yes. Which Punjabi town became the summer capital of British India? It was known by disrespectful juniors as the abode of the little tin gods.
Simla.
Yep. At which fort on the River Nile did the forces of the expanding British and French empires meet in September 1898? Conflict was avoided and the British took control of the Upper Nile.
Fashoda.
Yes. Which British general was killed at Khartoum in January 1885 by soldiers led by the Mahdi?
Pass.
What was the name of Charles Parsons' turbine-powered steamship, then the fastest ship in the world? It made a dramatic appearance at the Spithead Royal Navy Review in 1897.
The Victoria.
No, the Turbine, yeah. Which former British consul lobbied Germany for its assistance in the Easter Rising in Dublin during the First World War? He was arrested and hanged as a traitor in London in 1916.
Roger Casement.
Yes. Which British Army general was in command of the forces that captured Jerusalem from the Turks in 1917?
Allenby.
Yes. And your time is up. 2 passes. The British general who was killed at Khartoum was General Gordon, as you very well knew. And the first volume in the trilogy was An Imperial Progress, both of which you knew. It's the effect of the black chair.
Indeed, yeah.
You have, William, 9 points. And our next contender, please. And your name is?
Ash Cattell.
Your occupation?
As senior marketing manager.
And your specialist subject?
The musical Les Miserables.
Les Miserables, the musical by Alain Bublé and Claude Michel Schoenberg. Here we go in 2 minutes. The stage musical Les Miserables is based on a novel of the same title written in the 19th century. Who wrote it?
Victor Hugo.
Yes. At which venue did Les Miserables receive its London premiere in 1985? It ran there for 10 weeks before it transferred to the West End.
The Barbican.
Yes, which song was written especially for the 2012 film version of Les Miserables and was not featured in the original stage musical? It subsequently received an Oscar nomination for Best Original Song.
Suddenly.
Yes. What is Jean Valjean's prisoner number? Javert frequently refers to him by this number throughout the story.
24601.
Yep. After he's released from prison and changes his name, Jean Valjean becomes the mayor of which town?
Montreuil-sur-Mer.
Yes. Which Broadway impresario first agreed to buy an option on an English language version of Les Miserables shortly before Cameron Mackintosh became interested? The option lapsed without the agreed fee ever being paid, although he was briefly a co-producing partner.
Hossein.
No, James Nederlander. Which character sings the song I Dreamed a Dream? She's just been dismissed from her job and forced onto the streets.
Fontaine.
Yes. Shortly after she agrees to sell her locket, Fontaine also sells locks of her hair to an old woman. For how many francs
10
does she
francs.
sell her hair? 10 francs is correct. In the 2012 film adaptation, which actress plays the role of Eponine? She first came to prominence on the BBC talent show I'd Do Anything.
Samantha Barks.
Yes. What is the name of the leader of the student revolutionaries at the ABC Cafe? The role was played by David Burt in the original London staging of the show and by Aaron Fate in the film.
Enjolras.
Correct. Which poet and journalist was the original English language librettist for the show before he was replaced at a late stage by Herbert Kretzmer? He was instead credited with providing additional material.
James Fenton.
Yes. To which French writer and philosopher does Madame Thénardier sarcastically compare her husband in Master of the House? She goes on to say that he thinks he's quite a lover, but there's not much there.
Voltaire.
Yes. Which role in the original London production was shared between Ian Tucker, Oliver Spencer and Lisa Hayden? In the film, the role is played by Daniel Huddleston.
Gavroche.
Gavroche is correct. No passes, Ash. You have 12 points. And our next contender, please. And your name is?
Melissa Bookbinder,
Your occupation?
postgraduate student in French.
And your specialist subject?
The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice.
A series of best-selling Gothic novels that began with Interview with a Vampire in '76. Here we go, 2 minutes. What is the name of the ancient order of psychic detectives whose members include Jesse Reeves and David Talbot? It's introduced in The Queen of the Damned and appears in many subsequent novels in the Vampire Chronicles.
The Talamasca.
Yep. In Blackwood Farm, the blood hunter Quinn is haunted by a mysterious spirit. What name does Quinn give to this spirit?
Gamma.
Goblin. In Interview with the Vampire, on which street in San Francisco does the interview of the title take place between Louis and the boy?
Divisadero.
Yes, in the opening chapter of The Vampire, Lestat slays a pack of 8 wolves with the help of 2 of his largest dogs, both of which are killed by the wolves. What type of dog are they?
German Shepherds.
Mastiffs. What city is described as the vampire city in the opening sentence of The Tale of the Body Thief?
Atlantis.
Miami. In The Queen of the Damned, baby Jenks recalls how she was turned into a vampire moments before she died. What's the name of the posse of vampires who rescued her?
The Fangang.
Yep. In Blood and Gold, Marius becomes obsessed with a Renaissance painter and briefly considers turning him into a vampire. Which painter?
Botticelli.
Yes. In The Queen of the Damned, Lestat and Akasha visit the Garden of God, full of tiny pastel houses and banana trees. In which country is it?
Italy.
Haiti. In Memnoch the Devil, what is the name of Dora's uncle who lost an eye when he was beaten up for promising to lay a bet but failing to do so and keeping the stake for himself?
Raglan.
Mickey. Which English nobleman has an affair with Amadeo in The Vampire Armand before Amadeo kills him with help from Ricardo?
Lord Harlech.
Yes. In Merrick, the title character is a member of the Talamasca and a witch whom David sometimes addresses as the Witch of Endor. What is Merrick's surname?
James.
Mayfair. In the opening chapter of Prince Lestat and the Realms of Atlantis, Roland keeps a young man prisoner in a dungeon in Budapest. What is the prisoner's name?
Daniel.
Derek. In Interview with the Vampire, Louis reveals that he first met Lestat in the late 18th century while he'd been a plantation owner on the Mississippi near New Orleans. What was produced on this plantation?
Indigo.
Indigo dye is correct. No passes, Melissa. You have 6 points. And our final contender, please. And your name is?
Steve Macmillan,
Your occupation?
retired pensions manager,
And your specialist subject?
UK #1 hits of the 1960s.
A decade of chart toppers. Here we go. The very first UK #1 of the 1960s was What Do You Want to Make Those Eyes at Me For? It had reached the top spot in December 1959. It was by Emile Ford. And which backing group?
The Checkmates.
Yep. Which 66 hit by the Kinks opens with the lines, "The tax man's taken all my dough and left me in my stately home"?
Sunny Afternoon.
Yes, Ken Dodd had the third best-selling single of the 60s, which stayed at #1 for 5 weeks in 1965 and sold more than 1.5 million copies. Which song?
Tears.
Yes, the Everly Brothers had the first of 2 UK #1 singles in 61 with a double A side that included Walk Right Back in March of that year. What was the single-word title of the other song which topped the chart in July?
Hushabye.
Temptation. Cinderella Rockefeller, the novelty song that was a #1 in 68 for the Israeli duo Esther and Abi Ofarim, was released on which record label?
RCA.
Phillips. Je t'aime moi non plus was a 69 #1 that was sung entirely in French and banned by the BBC for its explicit content. It was a duet by Serge Gainsbourg and which actress?
Jane Birkin.
Yes, which Lennon and McCartney song was a #1 in 1963 for Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas? It was replaced at the top by the Beatles song She Loves You.
Little Children.
Bad to Me. Peter Asher, the brother of the actress Jane Asher, was one half of the duo who topped the singles charts in 1964 with A World Without Love. What was the surname of his singing partner, Gordon?
Waller.
Yep. The Archies topped the UK singles chart in 69 with Sugar Sugar. The song stayed at #1 for how many weeks?
7.
8. Peter Sarstedt had a #1 in 1969 with Where Do You Go To, My Lovely? What was the stage name of his brother Richard, who also had a UK #1 in the 1960s with Well, I Ask You?
Eden Kane.
Yes, the #1 single for Cliff Richard and the Shadows in January 63 is considered a double A side. Bachelor Boy was on one side, with what song on the flip side?
Lucky Lips.
The Next Time. No passes, Steve. You have 6 points. So that's the end of the first round, the specialist subjects. Let's have a look at all the scores. In joint third place, 6 points apiece, Melissa and Steve. Second place, 9 points, William. First place, 12 points, Ash. And it is the general knowledge round now. And if there's a tie at the end of it, then the number of passes is taken into account, and the person with the fewer passes is the winner. And if they're tied on passes as well, then there has to be a tie break. So let's ask Melissa to join us again, please. And you start out with 6 points, Melissa, but you've got 2.5 minutes for the general knowledge round now, so loads of time to catch up. Here we go. Which British butterfly's name comes from the small curved white patch on the underside of each wing that resembles a punctuation mark?
Comma.
Yes. Steve Chen, Jawed Karim and Chad Hurley co-founded an online video sharing platform and sold it to Google in 2006 for $1.65 billion. What's it called?
YouTube.
Yes. What was the name of the American railway engineer immortalised in a ballad after he was killed in a train accident in 1900? The legend tells how he died with one hand on the brake, the other pulling the whistle.
John Smith.
Casey Jones. In poetry, unrhymed iambic pentameter is also known as blank.
Verse.
Yes. Who was the first president of the Republic of Ireland to have been born in Northern Ireland? She'd previously worked as a barrister at the broadcaster RTE as a journalist.
Michaela Mickinson.
Mary McAleese. Which American multiple world boxing champion of the 1930s and 40s had the nickname Homicide Hank?
Hank Jones.
Now, Henry Armstrong, which Russian chemist born in 1834 is credited with the first formulation of the periodic table of elements?
Mendeleev.
Yes. In which opera by Bizet does the bullfighter Escamillo sing the aria popularly known in English as the Toreador song?
Carmen.
Yeah. What is the term for a person who chooses not to eat or use any animal products or byproducts? It was coined in 1944 by the animal rights activist Donald Watson, who said it marked the beginning and end of vegetarianism.
Vegan.
Yes. The double life of Deacon William Brodie, a respected Edinburgh cabinet maker by day and a burglar by night, is said to have been the inspiration for a novel by Robert Louis Stevenson. Which novel?
Treasure Island.
The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Which Spanish artists painting the 2nd of May 1808 and the 3rd of May 1808 commemorate the uprising in Madrid against the occupation by Napoleon's forces during the Peninsular War?
Picasso.
Goya. In the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz, what is the surname of Dorothy, the character played by Judy Garland?
Jones.
Gale. What game of Chinese origin was introduced to the West by an American named Joseph Babcock shortly after the First World War? It's normally played by 4 people and uses more than 100 individual small tiles.
Mahjong.
Yes. In the 4-stage life cycle of many insects, such as flies and beetles, the stage between larva and imago, or adult, is given what name?
Larvae.
Pupa. Which British television game show was originally hosted in 1977 by Gordon Burns? The show's title was a reference to Superman's home planet.
The Krypton Factor.
The Krypton Factor is correct. No passes, Melissa. You now have a total of 14 points. And now Steve again, please. And you also start out with 6 points, Steve. The score to beat at the moment is 14, and you have 2.5 minutes of general knowledge coming up now. The British Lion Quality Mark was introduced in 1998 to indicate a safety standard on which foodstuff?
Eggs.
Yep. What is the colloquial term for the stock of large, well-established companies that are considered to be a particularly reliable investment? It derives from the colour of high-value counters in the game of poker.
FTSE 100.
Blue chip. Which American television series, first broadcast in 2011, has featured Damian Lewis as a US Marine called Nicholas Brody and Claire Danes as a CIA officer named Carrie Matheson?
Homeland.
Yes. What property of a substance is defined as its mass per unit volume and is usually expressed metrically in kilograms per cubic metre?
Specific gravity.
Density. Gules is the heraldic term for which primary colour?
Yellow.
Red. An American journalist who worked for the Chicago Sun-Times from 1966 until his death in 2013 was the first film critic to win a Pulitzer Prize for criticism. What was his name?
Smith.
Roger Ebert. The Øresund Bridge is a 10-mile road and rail link that connects the Danish capital, Copenhagen, with which city in Sweden?
Stockholm.
Malmö. Which Olympic indoor sport has a playing surface that must be 2.5 feet above the floor and measure 9 feet long by 5 feet wide?
Fencing.
Table tennis. Who in 1959 became the first president of France's Fifth Republic, a post he held for 10 years?
Chirac.
Charles de Gaulle. Which West End musical tells the story of the wives of Henry VIII with a mixture of pop and hip-hop songs? It was nominated for 5 Olivia Awards in 2019.
Pass.
Which film won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 2013? It was directed by Ben Affleck and was based on a 1980 rescue operation during the Iran hostage crisis.
Hurt Locker.
Argo. At which club in Pall Mall, London, did Phileas Fogg make the bet that he could travel around the world in 80 days in the novel by Jules Verne?
Reform Club.
Yes. What outdoor activity is claimed to have originated in 2000 when a computer consultant named Dave Ulmer left a bucket of items near his home in Oregon for other people to find? It involves using a GPS unit to locate hidden objects.
Bingo.
Geocaching is
yeah.
what it's actually called. You had one pass. That West End musical that tells the story of the wives of Henry VIII was called 6. You have now a total, Steve, of 9 points. And now William again, please. And you start out with 9 points. Let's see how you do with your general knowledge, 2.5 minutes of it. Starting now. What term for a song traditionally sung by sailors, especially when they're doing heavy work, is sometimes said to derive from the French for to sing?
Chanté.
Yes. Which Formula One world champion returned to racing just 40 days after he was badly burned in a crash in the 1976 German Grand Prix? He died in May 2019.
Niki Lauda.
Yes. Which spirit is an essential ingredient of a classic Tom Collins cocktail?
Gin.
Yes. What is the name of the cartoon Viking created by Dick Brown who has a wife named Helga?
Hagar.
Yep, Hagar the Horrible. Who won a Best Actress Oscar for a role as Diana Scott, a ruthless model, in the 1965 film Darling?
Julie Christie.
Yes. Which classic American novel concludes with the line, "So we beat on boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past"?
Moby Dick.
The Great Gatsby. What common name for the New World bird Mimus polyglottos is based on its ability to imitate the calls and songs of other birds?
Minor bird.
The mockingbird. Which empress of Russia, a daughter of Peter the Great, ruled from 1741 until her death? She's credited with founding Russia's first university.
Catherine.
Elizabeth. What is the term from Greek words for without and God for a person who doesn't believe in the existence of a god or gods?
Atheist.
Yes. Which American composer and lyricist studied with Oscar Hammerstein as a young man? He went on to write the musicals Sweeney Todd and Follies, among others.
Rogers.
Stephen Sondheim. What Italian word for a toast is also a term for a drinking song, such as duet and chorus, Libiamo from Verdi's opera La Traviata? It's also the name of a coastal city in southeast Italy.
Chianti.
Brindisi. Which member of the British royal family graduated from St Andrews University in 2005 with a 2-1 degree in geography?
Prince William.
Yeah. What name is usually given to the apparent force experienced by an object moving in a circular path which appears to propel the object outwards from the centre of rotation?
Centrifugal.
Yes. What 1983 film stars Tom Conti in the title role and features David Bowie as a newly arrived inmate at a Second World War Japanese prisoner of war camp?
Empire of the Sun.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Which writer named his Jamaican home Goldeneye after an intelligence operation he oversaw to monitor Spain in the event of it joining the Second World War on the side of Germany?
Ian Fleming.
Yes, and that's your time up. No passes. Your score, William, has gone up to 18 points. And finally, Ash, please, again. And Ash, you start out with 12 points. The score to beat is 18. Here we go. Which MP was elected Speaker of the House of Commons after the resignation of Michael Martin in 2009? He was re-elected after each of the 3 subsequent general elections.
John Bercow.
Yes. What name's given to the family of birds similar in appearance to true hawks that are characterised by long pointed wings and swift, powerful flight? Its members include the peregrine, the kestrel and the hobby.
Falcons.
Yes. Which children's author wrote a series of novels about a Victorian foundling girl named Hetty Feather? The character is played by Isabel Clifton in a television adaptation of the books.
Enid Blyton.
Jacqueline Wilson. Which letter of the Greek alphabet in uppercase is used to represent the SI unit for resistance, the ohm?
Omega.
Yes. The 1962 Nicholas Freeling novel Love in Amsterdam was the first to feature which fictional detective?
Hercule Poirot.
Van der Valk. Which prolific American inventor is credited with creating the world's first industrial research laboratory? He was born in Milan, Ohio, in February 1847.
Pass.
What is the English name of the independent Polish trade union organization founded in September 1980 and once led by Lech Wałęsa?
Polish trade.
Solidarity. Which item of laboratory apparatus is a graduated glass tube with a stopcock at one end? It's used to measure the volume of a liquid or gas.
A pipette.
Burette. Which city is the capital of the Canadian province of Nova Scotia? It shares its name with an English town in West Yorkshire.
Halifax.
Yes, what is the name of the multi-headed dog who was the guardian of the gates to the underworld? Heracles was required to retrieve him as one of his 12 labours.
Cerberus.
Yes. Which of his compositions did Tchaikovsky later describe as very loud and noisy and completely without artistic merit? The score is sometimes accompanied by cannon fire and fireworks.
1664 Overture.
The 1812 Overture. Which 1951 novel by Nicholas Montserrat deals with the lives of the crew of HMS Compass Rose, a corvette on convoy duty during the Second World War?
Pass.
Which dancer and choreographer co-founded what became the Sadler's Wells Ballet? In 1931, she remained its director after it became the Royal Ballet in 1956.
Darcy Bussell.
Ninette de Valois. Which king was the first British monarch to deliver the now traditional Christmas message? At the time, it was broadcast live on BBC Radio.
George IV.
George V. What is the name of the American presidential retreat in Maryland that was established by Franklin D. Roosevelt as USS Shangri-La? It was renamed by President Eisenhower after his grandson.
Camp David.
Camp David is correct. You had 2 passes. The novel by Nicholas Montserrat, dealing with the lives of HMS Compass Rose, that was The Cruel Sea. And that prolific American inventor was Thomas Edison.
Oh.
You now have a total of 18 points.
Oh, no.
So, let's have a look at the final scores. In 4th place with 9 points, Steve. In 3rd place with 14 points, Melissa. William and Ash have both scored 18 points and both have 2 passes. So, that means that most unusually, we have a tie break. Now, what happens is this. I shall read the same 5 questions to each of the contenders, and the one with the higher score will win. And we're not against the clock this time, so let me ask Ash to leave the studio now for obvious reasons. And William, if you'd come and take the chair. And I shall give you 5 questions, William. I will not be telling you whether you're right or wrong. I shall just hear your answer. And then at the end of the 5 questions, you'll go back to your chair. So, here are your 5 questions. Which American actress played the lead roles in the Alfred Hitchcock films The Birds and Marnie?
Tippi Hedren.
Who received the first Nobel Prize in Physics in 1901 for his discovery of X-rays?
Röntgen.
Which 1835 opera by Donizetti is set in Scotland and based on a novel by Sir Walter Scott?
Lucia de Lammermoor.
What Native American name that means the High One is officially given to the highest mountain in North America? It's sometimes called Mount McKinley.
Aconcagua.
Which Irish author wrote the novel The Little Red Chairs? It was published in October 2015 when she was 84 years old.
Edna O'Brien.
Thank you. If you would now return to your chair and we'll get Ash to join us again. And the routine, just to remind you, I'm going to ask you 5 questions. I'm not going to tell you whether you're right or wrong. Here we go. Which American actress played the lead roles in the Alfred Hitchcock films The Birds and Marnie?
Tippi Hedren.
Who received the first Nobel Prize in Physics in 1901 for his discovery of X-rays?
Einstein.
Which 1835 opera by Donizetti is set in Scotland and based on a novel by Sir Walter Scott?
Pass, I don't know.
What Native American name that means the High One is officially given to the highest mountain in North America? It's sometimes called Mount McKinley.
El Capitan.
Which Irish author wrote the novel The Little Red Chairs? It was published in October 2015 when she was 84 years old.
I have no idea, sorry.
Right. If you will take your seat again, I shall Disclose all. We shall find out who the winner is. Well, at the end of that tie-break, we do have a winner. Ash has a total of 19 points, but tonight's winner, with 22 points, is William. Which means that William goes through to the semi-finals. Congratulations to him. Do join us again next time for more Masterminds. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.